And that brings us to some of the other residents of the North Pole. And one I'm really, really worried about is Rudolph. Rudolph's got a super important job. For those of you who maybe don't know who Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, is, he's the head boss that helps Santa's sleigh fly all over the world, right? Rudolph, he's got magic so that he can pull the sleigh. And if you understand it, he's also got this red nose, right? And so this is actually a form of acute, severe rhinopathy or nose inflammation, right? So this is very common with gluten. We'll see the nose swell and inflame. And as a matter of fact, Rudolph got the job of being the head reindeer because of this condition. So some would argue that Rudolph really depends on his gluten sensitivity in order to keep his job. But, because of the red nose, if you're not aware of this, it's really bright. And it helps Santa see at night as he's flying, his sleigh around the globe to deliver toys to the children. So Rudolph, again, his bright nose is a consequence of that gluten exposure, just leading to a fluorescence within the nose itself. And then if you've ever seen the reindeer when they fly, and all the reindeer have this, not just Rudolph, but Rudolph has it really bad. And that's, have you ever watch Superman on TV, and when Superman flies, he doesn't move his legs. If you've ever noticed that, he just kind of flies with his cape behind him, and his legs are straight, and his body is soaring through the air, and he's not kicking his legs as he's flying. But if you ever watch any of the reindeers fly, what are they all doing? They're all constantly kicking their legs, and part of the reason why is we know gluten can cause restless leg syndrome. It's one of the neurological consequences of gluten exposure. So, we know this to be the case. Rudolph has a severe case of restless legs. If you ever watched when you were a kid, there was a documentary on Rudolph as he was growing up, and he was constantly running around and moving, right? And the reindeer are all like this. They constantly have to move around and jump around. It's not really part of their training. It's because they all have restless leg syndrome. And one of the reasons why, it has to do with the magic deer corn that they're being fed. Remember, this form of corn gluten is a major contributing factor to this acute severe rhinitis and restless leg syndrome that we see Rudolph suffer with. So again, Rudolph, extremely gluten sensitive. Unfortunately, he relies on that illness, right, to light the sky for Santa. But so we want to keep our thoughts and prayers with Rudolph as he has to do that very, very important job. But he needs that glowing nose to do so. I'm also really concerned about Frosty. If those of you who know Frosty the Snowman is who I'm referring to, and one of the problems that we see with Frosty is he's obviously overweight. And this is one of those consequences, again, as I was mentioning when I was talking about Santa and Santa's response to gluten. Well, we see the same thing with Frosty. You ever wonder why Frosty always wears a scarf? So like this scarf that's around his neck, no matter when you see him, there's a reason why he wears that scarf. Frosty actually has a goiter. And what I want you to understand, so goiter is an enlargement of the thyroid gland. So we've got, Frosty is being exposed to gluten on a regular basis too. And in part, one of his biggest sources of exposure is corn as well. And it's his corn cob pipe. So, for those of you who don't know, Frosty, he smokes a corn cob pipe. And so he's getting glutened as a result of that pipe, right? And so that gluten is secondarily, it's affecting his thyroid gland. So he has a goiter, and so he's cold all the time. And it's one of the reasons why icicles form all over his body. It has to do with he can't regulate his metabolism properly. And so we see, he's always wearing gloves. He's got cold hands. He's covered in snow. constantly. You know, the goiter issue, the obesity. He's also, if you ever take his hat off, you know, you'll find that Frosty's bald. And again, hair loss and testosterone and androgen problems are a common consequence of gluten sensitivity. So Frosty's really struggling. So we want to keep him in our thoughts and prayers as well, as you know, as he uses gluten so much in the work that he does. But again, Rudolph and Frosty and Santa and the elves, you know, again, how do they do it? Because I mean, many of you are asking, well, if these guys can eat gluten and they're, you know, arguably they're over 1,000 years old. I mean, how long has Santa been circling the globe delivering children's toys? It's been a pretty long time, hundreds of years. How does he do it, right? How do they do it? What is this longevity that they have in the obvious face of a gluten sensitivity epidemic at the North Pole? And I think we come to the answer and to the conclusion, they have Christmas magic, right? So Christmas magic is really what allows this to happen. It allows Santa to eat the cookies, and it keeps him from having a heart attack or a stroke, and it allows him to be overweight and still slip down a chimney. It allows the elves to be obsessive about the work that they do so they can deliver value to the world. But you guys don't rely on Christmas magic, right? You don't want to try to rely on Christmas magic so that you can eat gluten. Like, you want to avoid it, because we're probably not going to live hundreds of years delivering toys and the like to the world. Like, that's not us. So just be aware that Santa and his crew have Christmas magic protecting them from gluten. The best we have is Gluten Shield, but I still don't recommend going and trying to eat the quantity of gluten that Santa Claus eats, or that any of the North Pole residents eat in the course of their day. So I wanted to break that to you, because a lot of people are very concerned about the health of Santa. And again, this is a major epidemic at the North Pole, gluten sensitivity. It's also a major epidemic here in the United States, as well as many other industrialized countries around the world that depend on Santa. So again, make sure that you're not relying on Christmas magic to go eat gluten, because if you do, I fear that you're going to end up with a major problem over the holidays that Santa and the reindeer and Frosty and Rudolph don't necessarily have to worry about, because they have that very, very powerful North Pole Christmas magic. So, hey, don't forget to check out the rest of the series right here. Make sure you hit subscribe below. And as always, thanks for tuning in.